Our last video was about figured bass notation, and you may ask yourself, why do we need to know figured bass notation? If you're a Baroque specialist and you're playing harpsichord or organ in a Baroque piece, you may still have to play off figures. But nobody else plays off figures. We have different notation today. Why is it important? Well, those numbers that we learned before, we still use them today to tell us what inversion we're in. So even in our modern Roman numeral system, which we're going to talk about now, we have to know our figured bass notation. Let me tell you about Roman numerals. So right here, I've got a C major chord, and I want to know what numeral I put in. Well, the Roman numeral is taken by the step of the scale. So if this is the tonic, if we're in C major, tonic is the first degree, we'd use a Roman numeral 1. If instead we're in the key of F, F, G, A, B, C, then the C is the fifth degree of the scale. We just use a Roman numeral 5. So the Roman numeral tells us what step of the scale. It also tells us what kind of chord it is. You notice that right there we have a major chord, so I used a capital Roman numeral. Let's pretend that this is a minor chord. Let's pretend, for example, we're in B flat, so that we have an E flat in that chord. Well, now in B flat, this is a 2 chord, but I don't put the lines above it like a normal Roman numeral. I put dots. If I put dots, it tells you, oh, it's in minor, it's small. A 5, you would just do like this with no lines over it. You don't put dots. But for the 2, you put dots. It just means it's small 2, small i's instead of capital I's. And that would say it's a 2 chord, the second degree of the scale, B flat to C, and it's a minor chord. And remember, sometimes you have diminished chords, we write them with a little circle, and sometimes you have augmented chords, we write them with a little plus. So that's our system. Capitals, small letters, pluses, and circles. All right, so now we know exactly what these numbers tell us. These numbers tell us what degree of the scale and the quality of the chord, major, minor, augmented, or diminished. So now the question is, why do we need those figured bass notations? Well, sometimes our chord, let's say it's a 1 chord in C major, is in first inversion. Well, how do we tell people it's first inversion? We write our capital I for 1, and then we use our figured bass notation. We just write a 6. And that tells you, see, it's a small 6 up high. That tells you first inversion. How come? Because in figured bass notation, it's a third and a sixth over the bass. But remember, we don't write the third. It's understood. So we just write the 6, and that means first inversion. And this one, let's pretend I'm in F now. So in F, a C chord is a 5 chord. So this is 5 chord, right? That tells you what key. And then it's in second inversion. So it's a 6/4 chord. So we just write a little 6/4 up there. It's hard to read the 6, but there it is. A 6/4, and that tells you so look at these Roman numerals. They tell you the kind of chord. They tell you what degree of the scale. That also tells you what key you're in. A 2 chord being minor tells you you're a major key. The second degree, so it's B flat major. So you tell you what key you're in, tells you what inversion the chord is in, it tells you what degree of the scale, and that for this is a tonic, this is a dominant, this is a 1 chord, this is a 5 chord, a ton of information. So by combining the step of the scale, the capital and small Roman numerals, and then the figured bass notation, we can tell us an awful lot about a chord progression. So this is the notation we usually use in classical music.